Hey there, Carrie Saunders here from the Gluten-Free Engineer, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this beautiful marbled lemon curd lemon cake with buttercream frosting from scratch and gluten-free to boot, and absolutely delicious. So let's get started. All right, so let's get started on making gluten-free lemon curd cake. So the first step in making gluten-free lemon curd cake is we need the zest and juice of 2 unwaxed lemons. And I'm going to put a tip in the description if you are having a hard time finding unwaxed lemons, because I know they can be actually hard to find in the United States. So I have this really great zester here I got actually from my friend. She's a direct sell company. You can probably guess which one. And it is the best zester I've ever had in my entire life. Absolutely love it. And it has a way to measure it on the back. So just find yourself a good zester, because that makes zesting a lemon a lot less of a process that is really annoying. I found this zester to be so much easier than the previous one I have. So first we're going to zest and juice 2 lemons that are unwaxed. So I want to show you a tip when picking out lemons from the store. I have found in all the lemon picking I've done that actually organic is the best way to go if you really want some really great sour tasting lemons and ones that are high quality. And I want to show you this lemon now that I have it cut in half. Do you see how thin that rind is? That actually produces a better tasting lemon, I have found. And the way you can tell in the store is you want to squeeze the lemon, and if it feels like, 1, the lemon's soft, that lets you know it's a bit more ripe, and 2, if it feels like very soft, then usually it's a thin rind on it. If it feels hard, then you're likely going to have one of those really thick rinds, which doesn't produce as good of a tasting lemon. So that was one little tip I wanted to show you here on how to pick out your lemon. I've already zested it, so you can't quite see the skin here. Usually the skin's smoother too, I have found. And then, like I said, when you squeeze it, it's going to feel soft, kind of like more like your nose versus your chin feeling. So you can think of it that way. So like if you touch your nose, it's more squishy, then your chin is a bit more firm behind it. So that's my little tip when picking out lemons. Okay, so now that we have zested and juiced our 2 unwaxed lemons, we're going to start making the lemon curd. So first off, you want to start with a heat-proof bowl. Today I'm going to use this metal bowl, and I do want to caution you on using a metal bowl. We want to make sure we're using a metal bowl that won't pull out the acidity, like the acidity won't pull out the flavor of the metal bowl, because we don't want metal flavored lemon. I have found that my metal bowls do not do that, so I'm using that. You can also use a heat-proof glass bowl as well for this. We're going to be putting this on the stove, so make sure you have a heat-proof bowl. So first we take half of the lemon zest that we did from the 2 lemons. So I'm going to put about approximately half of this into the bowl. We want to reserve the rest of the lemon zest for the cake. So there's approximately half out of it right now. And then we want to put all of the juice from the 2 lemons into the bowl. And then we want to mix in what's called castor sugar. Now, in the United States, sometimes I find that castor sugar is a bit harder to find. It's something you can do with normal granulated sugars. You can put it in your food processor, and that will help make it a finer powder. The purpose of the castor sugar is so that it dissolves better and more completely. I found in our local store, there's a natural cane sugar that seems to act like castor sugar, so it should, because I'm having a hard time finding castor sugar myself. So this is just shy of 3/4 cup of castor sugar. It is 150 grams. If you have a scale and can measure by weight, that's much better when you're baking to do that. So we're going to put that right in here. And my sugar actually had a little bit of a lump in it, but I'm not too worried about it, because I know this is really good quality sugar, and I've not had problems with it before. So we just want to whisk that together. And then next we want to get some water on our stove boiling so that we can put this bowl right on top of it. So while we're getting the water to simmer in our pot that perfectly fits our bowl, one that's not too big, you want to kind of sit up out of the water, we are going to be putting in This is 2 egg yolks and 1 whole egg. So you want to, I've already separated 2 of the whites out of the 2 egg yolks. So this is 2 egg yolks and 1 whole egg, and we're going to be putting that into our lemon and sugar mixture next. So you want to get that nice and whisked up before we put it on the stove. Okay, so now that we have that all nice and whisked up, we're going to sit that over our simmering pot of water, and we are going to want to occasionally whisk this pretty regularly for about 15 minutes. So we want to be cooking this mixture. We're basically cooking the eggs to a safer temperature, and it's also helping thicken the lemon curd. So we're going to want to do this for about 15 minutes. Okay, so our 15-minute timer has gone off. You can probably see, hopefully in the video, how much the volume of liquid has been reduced already. So, and I highly recommend that you time this. So once we get to the 15-minute mark, we're going to want to test to see if this coats the back of a spoon very thickly. And I feel like we're not quite ready yet, but I want to show you that process so you can see what it looks like. And even in the process of where it's not quite ready. So we're going to stick our spoon in, turn it over. Now, hopefully you can see that that is not very thick yet. So we're not quite ready yet. My lemons were very juicy. So we want to make sure that we're doing this until it is thickly coating at the back of that spoon, because we want to get this a nice thick mixture. A lemon curd is really good when it's nice and thick, and we want to make sure it's to that consistency so it doesn't run off of our cake. We want it to really stick to that cake and really make it taste really delicious. Okay, so my lemons were so juicy that I had to go for about another 8 more minutes on this slow cook over a pot. So let me show you what it looks like now. I can finally start to feel resistance as I'm whisking, so it's getting a lot thicker. And then let me just show you what it looks like on the spoon. So dip it right in, turn the spoon over. See how thick that is now? It is not even, it's hardly even running off the back of the spoon. So I feel like we're at a nice thickness now. Hopefully you can see how slow that is to drip. So we're at a good thickness now. Let me just scrape those goodies back off into the pan, because you can just smell the lemon from here. It is so lemony smelling. Okay, so our last step in making the lemon curd is adding in about a little bit over 5 tablespoons of butter. It is technically 75 grams, which equates to about 5.3 tablespoons of butter if you don't have a way to measure your butter out. So then we're going to put in a cube or a pat at a time. And then we want to mix that. Let me push the bowl back down on this side. And then we want to mix that until it is melted. Okay, so here we are adding in that last pat of butter to melt into our beautiful looking lemon curd. All right, and there you have a lemon curd made. Now, what you can do next, if you like it super smooth and silky, is I recommend straining this into another bowl and then letting it cool down. But if you are a person who doesn't mind a little bit of zest in your lemon curd, and actually these eggs, you might be able to see an egg white floating around in here. I had some really thick egg whites in this one, so I do have an egg white chunk or 2 in here. So if you would rather, you can definitely strain this when you're done creating your lemon curd. So the next step would be to strain and let it cool, and then we're going to move on to the cake next. And before we move on to the cake, I just want to show you how thick it is now that the butter's on there. See how the lemon curd is not even really wanting to drip off the back of my spoon. So you want it really nice and thick like that, and it will thicken a little bit as it cools down. But that is a perfectly looking, smooth, creamy lemon curd. Especially after I strain it, it will be even smoother. So now that we have our lemon curd cooling over here, we're going to next start on the cake of the lemon curd cake. So we're going to be starting by creaming our butter and sugar. We are going to add in 2 sticks of unsalted butter. And this is at room temperature, so we want to make sure that our butter is at room temperature. It's actually very important when making cakes so that everything homogenizes well in the cake. We don't want chunks of cold butter in our cake whenever we start to bake it. So make sure this has been sitting out for several hours. You can see how soft that is. It's really, really soft and mushy. Now, one tip, if you did forget to soften your butter, you can soften your butter in the microwave very carefully. My microwave actually has a melt butter setting, so I can use that for like a very fraction of the time to actually melt the butter, and it will soften it for me. So now that we have our butter in there, we're going to pour in our castor sugar. This is 225 grams of castor sugar. It's measuring out to be about a cup, if that's helpful, if you don't have a scale in your kitchen. So we are just going to put that in there with our paddle attachment, and we're going to want to be mixing this for approximately 3 to 5 minutes. We want the butter and the sugar to become a really light colored in texture and in look as well. Now make sure that you're occasionally stopping the process to scrape down the sides, because we really want to make this butter and sugar mixture really homogenized or really well mixed and put together. And we also want to make sure we're beating it at about a medium speed when we're doing this. And I highly recommend you time it for 3 to 5 minutes. You can start off with 3, see if it's really light in texture and in color, and then keep going if it's not quite there yet. Okay, so we are right at the 3-minute mark. You can see how this butter right here mixture is so much lighter than the mixture right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape this down again and run it for about another minute or 2. Okay, so now that it is light and fluffy and almost lemony color, you can see how really pale light yellow that is. We are going to next add in 4 lightly beaten eggs that I have right here in this bowl already. And you're going to want to make sure that you stop it and scrape down the sides as well. One thing to note too, when you're adding in the eggs into your cake mixture, you want to do 1 egg at a time, get it nicely incorporated, and then another egg at a time. If you do them all at once, then that'll kind of encourage the butter to become cold again, and it'll make your mixture not quite so homogeneous, it's a hard word to say, will make your mixture not quite so homogeneous, and it'll cause a bit of issues with your cake batter when you're adding in the flour and the other ingredients. So now that we have our egg, butter, and sugar mixture all well mixed together, we're going to start off next with our dry ingredients. So first off, we have here 200 grams of gluten-free flour. This is a 1-to-1 flour. This is very important in here. If your flour is not a 1-to-1 flour, meaning it doesn't have a binding agent in it, then you need to be putting a binding agent in here. This has xanthan gum already built in, and there's other binding agencies you can use to replace the gluten in a gluten-free flour. If you are sensitive to xanthan gum, some people are sensitive to xanthan gum. So this is, again, 200 grams or about 1 1/4 cup. And to it, we're going to be adding in about a 1/4 cup of cornstarch. Now that is actually 25 grams if you're doing a weight measurement, which equates to about a 1/4 cup. So we're going to be adding that into our flour. Let me set that down because it's very sticky. And corn flour, this is the first time I've ever used corn flour in this recipe. It actually makes the cake really nice and silky. And we're going to be adding to that a tablespoon of baking powder, as well as a pinch of salt. Now you can sift this together. A lot of people like to do that. Sometimes I'm in a hurry and don't want to sift it. You can also whisk it, as long as you're getting it pretty well incorporated and have really good, already nice, light and fluffy flour. You wouldn't have to sift it if you don't want to. I know some cake people out there might be like, oh, you got to sift it. But I've found success if you have a really good quality flour and you mix everything together well with a whisk, that it actually still works perfectly fine and saves you a little bit of time if you are so inclined. So we're going to slowly add this into our liquid mixture. So now that we've added it all into our mixture, I want you to see how the batter looks. See how it's nice and creamy and well blended together. We didn't want to over mix it, but we do want it nice and well mixed together. So hopefully you can see how nice and creamy that looks. And then next we're adding in the flavor. So here we want to add in the zest from the first lemon. Remember how we zested 2 lemons in the beginning? So we want to add 1, we reserved half of it. So we're adding that half of the zest, plus we just zested 1 more lemon and juiced 1 more lemon. So we're going to add basically 2 lemon zests in to the cake mixture. And then next we're going to add in the juice of that 1 lemon we just zested and juiced. I like to stop it here, scrape down the bowl, make sure everything's getting mixed together. And then finally we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of whole milk. We're going to let that beat for about 30 seconds. Next, we're going to put the batter into 2 well-greased baking pans. And once you have it into your 2 greased pans, now for greasing it, you can use butter, like you normally would, like most people do. I tend to like to use an avocado oil spray. It will resist a high temperature, and it's just so easy to use. So then we want to level these out as well. And I wish that you could smell this. It smells so good. You can smell the lemon in the cake. So next we're going to bake these in an oven that's been preheated to 350 degrees for 5 minutes. And then we're going to lower the temperature to 325 for an additional 30 to 35 minutes for a total of 35 to 40 minutes we're going to bake this. That initial higher temperature kind of helps it rise a bit. And then but we don't want to like cook it too hot because we want it to be nice and moist and not dry out. So we're going to then lower the temperature after about 5 minutes. You could just bake this at 325 for about 35 to 40 minutes and see how it goes. But I do like to do it that initial 5 minutes to help it like lift up and rise in the oven pretty quickly, and then we lower the temperature down to 325. So it has been 35 minutes. We are going to check the temperature and see if it is clean, and our cake tester is very clean. We actually may have overcooked this a tad. It doesn't look burnt though, but we do have a definitely pulling away from the sides, so we can definitely tell it is done, as well as the cake tester came out clean. But I'm not too worried about this one being a little bit overbaked because we're going to have that beautiful lemon curd inside that's going to help it retain its moisture. So now that I've let the cakes cool down for about 5 minutes in their tin, we are going to next turn them out onto a wire cooling rack so they can continue to cool. And now we'll let this completely cool before we make our buttercream frosting and put it all together. So while your cake is fully cooling, it is the perfect time to start your buttercream frosting. So today we're going to be working on a classic just vanilla buttercream frosting. Start off with 2 sticks of softened butter. So this has been sitting on my counter all morning. It's a great way to soften your butter. If you have to in a pinch, you can do this in the microwave. You just have to be really careful not to actually melt it. So we're going to want to beat that for about 3 minutes until it has lightened in color. And plus another note I want to say too is I love to use grass-fed butter. It actually has a much better flavor and it gets softer, easier. It's much easier to work with when you're making cakes and icing. So I recommend a really good brand of grass-fed butter if you have that available to you. It just makes for better results that you can actually taste. So let's whip this up for about 3 minutes. Okay, so now that we beat our butter for about 3 minutes, you can see that it has lightened up in color. It's a bit fluffier. So we're going to work on incorporating our powdered sugar into here. This recipe calls for 3 to 4 cups of powdered sugar, and we want to add about a half a cup at a time. So I'm going to add about half of this to it. And then we want to beat that for about 10 seconds until it's light again. You'll want to stop and scrape down the bowl as needed. Okay, now here's the last of our 3 cups. And this is 3 to 4 cups, so I want to incorporate the 3rd cup and then we're going to taste it. So you can see how light colored it is here on, let me show you on my spoon. So you can see how light colored it is. So next we want to taste this to see if it's the right sweetness that we like. So I think it's just right there. So next we're going to incorporate 2 teaspoons of vanilla and a pinch of salt. One note with vanilla is you want to make sure you have a high quality vanilla because sometimes vanilla extract will have gluten in it as well. So make sure it's gluten free, and usually the high quality ones are gluten free. All right, so we incorporated the vanilla a little bit. So next we're going to add 2 to 3 tablespoons of milk, heavy cream, or half and half. And I'm choosing today to use just whole milk. So now we beat in our 2 to 3 tablespoons of milk, heavy cream, or half and half, as well as the vanilla. So we want to check it now for consistency to see if it is the consistency we like. And this buttercream is moving nice and smoothly. Hopefully you can see it really well in the video. So it's moving nice and smoothly, and it actually looks really great and nice and creamy. So I believe this is just perfect. So I ended up using 3 cups instead of 4 of the confectioner's sugar, and then I used 2 tablespoons of milk. This is all going to depend upon the moisture in the air for the day, how dry it is here in Ohio right now as I'm recording this. It's pretty dry, so I don't want to add any more confectioner's sugar into it, or powdered sugar, whichever way you want to talk about it. So now our buttercream is ready for our cake. Okay, so now that our cakes are fully cooled, we are going to work on assembling them. We're going to start by putting the first cake down. I have it on a turntable here with some parchment paper on it just to make it easier for me to get it back off of the surface when I'm done with it, and put it on a pretty plate. So first off, I have the buttercream frosting that we created in this piping bag. I'm going to create a nice ring on the outside to hold the lemon curd in. All right, so we have that nice ring going on. I'll set that down now. And then next, we're going to put the lemon curd in the center. So I have the lemon curd over here that we created earlier. I'm going to whisk it back up. I opted not to strain the lemon curd. We're not super huge on worrying about the texture in our family. This is for my son's birthday. He actually loves fruit flavored cakes way better than chocolate. I would be making myself a chocolate cake if this were for me, but he loves fruit flavor, so I chose lemon today. And then we're going to just spread that lemon curd right in the center. You can see how nice and thick it is. It really thickened up as it sat there and cooled. I'm going to leave a little bit of extra space though, because once we put the next cake layer on top, it will kind of make it squish, and I'm trying not to have it squish all the way out. So I left a little bit of a gap around it. I've got some extra lemon curd. We're actually going to use that to decorate the outside with it. All right, so we'll set that aside, and next we'll grab the other layer of cake very carefully, placing it right on top. All right, there we go. Now we have both layers of cake on here. I'm going to next do a quick crumb coat, and then we'll put it in the freezer and let that set before we do the final outside coating. Okay, so I'm going to do something a little differently with the decoration of this cake. I've actually never tried it before, but we're going to give it a go. So I'm going to make a little splotches of the lemon curd on the outside. And then we're going to just blend those in with some more buttercream frosting. Going to add just a little bit more buttercream frosting. I have quite a bit already on the cake, so I don't want to get too much on there, but I do want to blend this some. All right, and then there you have it, a beautifully marbled lemon curd with vanilla buttercream frosting lemon cake that is gluten-free and absolutely delicious.